Now, as we take a look at question number 2, it says negative 6x squared y cubed being multiplied by the polynomial 5x y to the fourth added to 3x to the fourth. So again, this is more distributive property, me taking what's in front of the parentheses and multiplying it through to the things that are inside the parentheses. So the negative 6x cubed y squared has to be multiplied through to 5xy to the fourth. It also has to be multiplied through to 3x to the fourth. So let's take the negative 6 part through to the 5 part. Well, the negative 6 times 5 is going to give me negative 30. X squared and mystery x here doesn't have an exponent, so that's a 1. X to the first are going to combine to make x cubed. Remember, we're adding the exponents because this is a multiplication problem. And then y cubed being multiplied by y to the fourth makes y to the seventh. Now, you can see here that there's an addition sign in the middle, but when they transcribed it, they've written minus. The reason why is because in the next part here, they're going to start off and do negative 6 times 3, which is actually going to give me negative 18. So instead of writing plus negative 18, they just wrote minus 18 there. So I wrote the minus 18, and then I got to take the x squared through to the x to the fourth. That's going to combine to make x to the sixth. And then y cubed, and that just gets transferred down to the answer y cubed. And so we end up with minus 18x to the sixth y cubed. Now, as we take a look at the next question here, here's our problem-solving question. It says the length of a picture frame is 8 inches less than 3 times its width. Find the length and width if the area is 60 inches squared. All right, so we're going to call the width of the frame W, and then from that we can generate the length, because what they said here is it's 8 inches less than, or otherwise subtract 8 from that W, but it's 3 times that width. So 3 times W minus 8. So the answer here is going to be a value of W that makes the area of the frame equal to 60. All right, now obviously here what we're doing is we're solving this using the distributive property again, which is why it fits in this section, because that would imply that we're going to have to multiply, and this section is about multiplying. We're taking the length, 3 times W minus 8, and multiplying it by the width, which we've called W. So when I take W and multiply it by 3 times W minus 8, with the distributive property, that's going to give me 3W squared, 3 times what would be in effect a coefficient of 1 is still going to give me 3, and WW is going to give me W squared, and then I'm going to multiply the W through 8 times W is going to give me 8W, and as you can see we've got subtraction in the middle there. Alright, so 3W squared minus 8W gives me a polynomial expression equal to the area of the picture frame. So now what they've decided to do is they've decided to try different numbers until we pop up with a solution of 60. So they start off with 3 and they progress up here. Obviously this last one happens to be the solution. Want to make sure you use order of operations, which is another good thing to talk about here. Remember, when we're doing order of operations, exponents come first. Then we can go ahead and hit our multiplications that we see here. So when they plug in 3, it's 3 times 3 squared minus 8 times 3. Well, 3 squared is going to change into 9. 9 times 3 is 27. And I subtract 24, which is 8 times 3, and I get 3. Well, remember, my answer is supposed to be 60 here, so I know that this one just didn't work. So I try it with 4. 4 squared is 16, times 3 is 48, and then if I subtract 32 here, 8 times 4 is 32, I get 16, not 60. So 4 is not the answer. 5 squared is 25, times 3 is 75, and if I subtract 40, which is 8 times 5, I get 35. Well, that again is not 60, so that one doesn't work either. 6 squared is 36, times 3 here, 36 times 3 is going to change into 108, and if I subtract 88 times 6, which is 48, I pop up with a solution of 60. Well, that's great because we've got a solution of 60. The question said the area is going to be 60. So plugging in 6 gave me the correct width. All right, so now that I know that w equals 6, now I'm going to apply it to that polynomial to find that length. Remember, that polynomial is what we found way back up here in step 1 for the length. It's this 3 times w minus 8. So I'm going to do 3 times 6, which is 18, minus 8, which is 10, and that's going to give me the length, which is where they're coming up with this length answer. So if the width is 6 and the length is 3 times that minus 8 or 10, that would indeed give me an area of 60, and thus my answer is reasonable. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the check it out examples here. Number 1, we're multiplying together 5r to the 4th s cubed and 3r cubed s squared. So remember, we're going to combine our integer parts. 5 times 3 is going to go together to give me 15, which is what you see there in the answer. The r to the 4th and r cubed are going to go together. Those are going to go together to give me r to the 7th, which is what you can see is the second part of the answer. And then the s cubed and the s squared are going to go together. And that's going to go together to make s to the 5th, which is the final part of the answer. Again, remember, the product of powers rule says here when you multiply together powers with the same base, all right, in this case here the r's, in this case here the s's, you add the exponents. So here you're going to add for 7, here you're going to add for 5. That's where those answers came from. Now number 2 is a repeat of the distributive property. We've got negative 3a cubed b squared being multiplied by 4ab cubed added to 4a squared. So you're going to take this negative 3a cubed b squared and multiply it through to 4ab cubed and 4a squared. So if I take it through on the first part here, negative 3 times 4 is going to give me negative 12, which is what you can see right there. The a cubed and the a are going to combine. That's going to give me a to the 4th. Remember, if it doesn't have an exponent there, it's like a 1. So this is like a 1. And again, the rule says, as we just discussed again in number 1, that we're supposed to add the exponents together. 3 and 1 adds up to make 4. And then I've got b squared and b cubed. That's going to combine to make b to the 5th. Again, adding the exponents. Now we see a plus sign in the middle here, but then we know we're going to get hit with negative 3 times 4, which is going to change into negative 12. So they wrote minus 12 here. They could have written plus negative 12 would have been fine. A squared being multiplied by a cubed gives me a to the 5th. And b squared is not going to partner with anything, so it's just going to get dragged into the answer here. Reason why is there's nothing with b over here, so it gets just dragged into that answer, and there's b squared.